Today we will be utilizing Dartfish, digital video analysis software, to analyze a serve and lay out a plan for student improvement. The primary goals of the items you see listed on the screen are to improve the power and consistency in the serve. Items 1 and 4 specifically are aimed at increasing racket head speed of contact, and items 2 and 3 are aimed at improving consistency through giving the server a more reliable toss. We'll begin by looking at the hinge in the wrist here at the beginning of the serve. Anytime you put a hinge in the wrist, you create unnecessary tension in your wrist, arm, and grip. And if this persists throughout the serve, it can severely diminish the amount of power in the serve. The next thing we're going to look at is actually the path of the toss arm, and I've drawn a line here on the left leg which indicates as far back as the toss arm should go. But as you can see here, the student's arm goes almost all the way back to their right leg, and by pulling the toss arm all the way back here and then tossing the ball, this leads to a very inconsistent toss. In the next slide we'll be looking at the path of the ball as it is tossed, and as you can see here, the student has a lot of left to right movement, and anytime we do the toss in tennis, we want to try to minimize the amount of left to right movement here. We'll compare that path to that of Thomas Johansson, and you can see it's much different. We've got a much more consistent service toss whenever we can minimize the amount of left to right travel. I've outlined a blue path here that would be a lot better for the student to follow if possible. I've chosen Rafa Nadal and made him right-handed to compare and model the serve that the student should try to emulate. The places that they deviate are going to be our areas of focus. Initially here at the beginning of the serve, you can see that the student should release the tension in the arm and try to start like Nadal here without the hinge in the wrist. In the next slide you can see that as the ball is about to be released from the palm, that Nadal's palm is up and the student's palm is facing the fence. With the palm facing the fence like that, it's ultimately going to lead in a flip and put spin on the toss. In the next one, Nadal is really loading up power by lowering that right elbow and also by bending his knees. This is the position that the student will ultimately want to emulate. Finally, the student seems to lack acceleration through the hitting zone. As you can see in the next progression here, the student gets well ahead of Nadal with the racket drop behind his back and almost has a fairly consistent speed throughout the serve, whereas Nadal loads up some power and then drops and accelerates. And you can see he was much behind the student, but then ultimately had no trouble catching up to contact. The good news is that from contact forward, the student and Nadal match very closely, as you can see here in the next progression. From contact point on through pronation and then ultimately court positioning upon landing are very similar. Let's take a look at the full serves here at half speed. Alright, now we're going to move to an overlap, and again you can see a big difference here in the starting position. The wrist hinge for the student and the relaxed wrist there for Nadal. I also see the difference in the toss here again. The one toss is being more or less flipped by the student, whereas Nadal is opening up his hand to release that toss. In the next slide you can see that Nadal also has a lot more power loading prior to dropping the racket behind the neck and behind the back rather, and this leads to much more acceleration through the hitting zone. So again, let's look at these full serves at half speed. Now that we've identified the areas of focus and found a model to emulate, now we need to put together a plan for improvement. I think the first item to be addressed will be the starting position of the serve. Go ahead and unhinge that wrist and release the tension there. Then we'll go ahead and address the toss, try to improve the toss, make it more consistent, and finally look at increasing the power in the serve by getting extra loading in the legs and also through accelerating more through impact. Thanks for tuning in to I'm on Your Side Tennis. I'm Dan Brown. call me if you'd like a digital video analysis lesson of your serve or any other stroke for that matter. I can be reached at 630-430-9187. See you next time.